And now your man, Donovan Sharpe.
What's up, guys? It's your man, Donovan Sharpe, and welcome to the 496th edition of TSR Live. We are presented by Gorilla Mind Rush, the #1 productivity supplement on the market. It is Monday, August 5th, 2019. I am back from the second of two vacations I took this summer. Just got back from the Florida Keys, and it is good to be back. I am rested, refreshed, and ready to go. We are streaming live to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So however you're watching, wherever you're watching from, thank you for making the Sharpe Reality Live a part of your daily routine. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Today's topic was submitted by Paul. So a special thanks goes out to Paul because this is next level cautionary tale in terms of a woman who had it all. Basically, she had it made when she was young, and she threw it all away to ride the carousel. Now, the article is entitled, let me switch here. The article is entitled, quote, "I left the love of my life because I thought I could do better. Now I am childless and alone at 42. Guys, this sounds almost too bad to be true. It sounds like an article on a red pill porn site. But this appears to be the genuine article and a real story. So the article was written 6 years ago on the Daily Mail by a woman named Karen Cross. And you guys can access the article. I'm going to put it in the description. Now, Ms. Cross isn't an author. She's not a blogger. She's not a YouTuber. And she doesn't do videos or anything like that. So she doesn't have an online presence other than this one article. So let's go ahead and get started here. Laughing and dancing, she says, pardon me. With my fiancé at our engagement party, I thought I might actually burst with happiness. Surrounded by our family and friends, I looked at Matthew and felt certain I had met the man I was going to spend the rest of my life with. Quite simply, he was my soulmate. Now, first off, there's no such thing as a soulmate, right? To give you an example, most people are familiar with the show Mad Men and the main character, Don Draper, played by John Hammond. One of his most famous quotes on the show was red pill to the core. He said to a woman, "What you call love was invented by guys like me to sell nylons." What's the same as the word soulmate. The word soulmate was also invented by guys like Don Draper to sell high-priced jewelry and expensive gifts. She's your soulmate. Buy her that $5,000 ring. She's your soulmate. Buy her a $10,000 tennis bracelet. She's your soulmate. Show her she's your soulmate with a $6,000 necklace in our new soulmate collection. It's all BS. The word soulmate is a myth. Just like unconditional love is a myth. Doesn't exist. You're not going to find your person, guys. Women don't understand this because they're just emotional creatures, but men, we have the logic and pragmatism to understand that we're never going to find our person. Okay? What we do is we find a female to mold and shape to our specifications, and then we maintain it. There's nothing easy about that. There's nothing effortless about that. Love in relationships is hard work. This is why most women pull the ripcord the minute her boyfriend or husband upsets her, or worse, she finds her soulmate. I remember a long time ago, I was on Yahoo Answers, and one girl said, "Oh, I've been married for 8 years and I have 2 kids, she said, what if you're married for 8 years and 2 kids, but then you find your soulmate?" Okay? Guys, she is not your best friend. Oh, I'm sorry, she's not your best friend. She is not your soulmate. She is your girlfriend. She is your wife. Like Steve the Dean Williams says, I don't want her love, I want her respect. You get her respect, you get her love. Okay? That's how it works. If you have her respect, then you can get her love, not the other way around. And you don't have to be her soulmate to get it. Let's continue. We were desperately in love, she said, and had our future life together and mapped out. First, we would buy to save our home, then would come a romantic wedding ceremony, and children would follow. It all seemed naive. So simple to my naive 19-year-old self. I smugly told myself, the girl who had it all. So why, 20 years later, do I find myself single, childless, and tormented by the fact that I have thrown away the only true chance of happiness I ever had. You know, it's interesting how she now defines being 19 and in love as the girl who had it all. And make no mistake, guys, she did. She did have it all. If you're a young, pretty girl and you find a man to marry, you do indeed have it all. A man who is willing to marry you, okay, and a chance to start a family at a young age, that's a girl who has it all. Now, as a side note, the younger women have kids, the easier it is for women to get their bodies back. You see these women in their 30s waddling around 6-7 months pregnant, big as a house. Then they have the kid, then they can't seem to really shake the baby weight. Well, why is that? Well, because you're 34, and it's a lot harder to drop that baby weight than when you're 24. So many females who wait to have children in their 30s, they blow up like the party, like the party girl's phone on a Friday night, and their bodies are never the same. Now, they could get their bodies back, but it's not as easy. And as we all know, most females in this part of the world are lazy and have no discipline whatsoever. So once they put on the baby weight, it never comes off. This is one of the worst kept secrets of motherhood. Have kids early so you can get your body back. That's just sort of a side note. Anyway, she asks, well, why do I find myself single and childless 20 years later? Well, the answer is simple, Miss Cross. You, like millions of other Western women, bought into the ridiculous idea that you can put off marriage in your 20s, sleep around in your prime fertile years, and pick up right where you left off and still have the same options at 42 as you did when you were 22. That's why. She continues, 8 years after that wonderful engagement party in 1989, I walked away from dear devoted loyal Matthew, convinced that somewhere out there a better, more exciting, more fulfilling life awaited me. Only there wasn't. Now I am 42 and have all the trappings of success, a high-flying career, financial security, and a home in the heart of London's trendy Notting Hill. But I don't have the one thing I crave more than anything, a loving husband and family. You see, she says, I never did find another man who offered everything Matthew did, who understood me and loved me like he did, someone who was my best friend as well as my lover. Today, seeing friends with their children around, seeing their children with around them, I'm rusty, guys, it's been a little while, bear with me. Today, seeing friends with their children around them tortures me, as I know I am unlikely to have a family of my own. I think about the times Matthew and I talked about having children, even discussing the names we would choose. I cannot believe I turned my back on so much happiness. Instead, here I am, back on the singles market looking for the very thing I discarded barely with a backward glance all those years ago. I know I can't have Matthew back, she says, and it hurts when I hear snippets of information about his life and how content he is. 15 years after I ended our relationship, he is happily married. Karen Cross allowed herself to be seduced by feminism, guys. She allowed feminism to sucker her into hitting the eject button and living the party life for a decade and a half without reading the fine print that says, warning, the pursuit of this lifestyle may end up in loneliness, regret, cats, and wine. It was feminism that convinced her that somewhere out there was a more exciting life. And feminism, to its credit, was right. Listen, let's not pretend that sleeping around is not more exciting than starting a family for a woman, because it is. The party lifestyle for girls is one rush after the next. Sleeping with 10 guys in 10 days is a lot more exciting than sleeping with one guy, your husband, for 10 years and beyond. But where Karen went wrong is thinking that this life was also fulfilling. There's nothing fulfilling about getting ran through by random dudes. There is nothing fulfilling about the bad boy you slept with the night before never calling or texting again. There's nothing fulfilling about the fear of piss and a plus sign. There's nothing fulfilling about getting an abortion so you can continue to climb up the corporate ladder and face raising a kid as a single mother. There's nothing fulfilling about being single and childless at 42, no matter how much success and money you have as a woman. Now, a 42-year-old man who has a successful career, financial stability, who is single, that man is definitely fulfilled. But Donovan, a single woman with no kids can be fulfilled at 42 with a career. No, they can't. You want to know why? Because women need men. We as men, we don't need women. At 42, a man who has his shit together and he's got any pickup woman he wants. But at 42, a financially successful woman doesn't have any options other than the occasional one-night stand or 3-month friends with benefits arrangement that abruptly ends because he found a 23-year-old version of her. 42-year-old men aren't writing articles or doing videos asking why they're single and childless at 42. No, these guys are out here telling men how kick-ass their lives are. Gentlemen, women are biologically and genetically designed to want and need a family, a husband and children. They're not designed to be men because they're women. If a woman acts like a man, her life will end up like a man. You see this all the time, guys. You got these chicks in their late 30s, early 40s who live the high-value male life of sleeping around, making money, traveling, advancing in their careers, and they're all miserable. They're all on some sort of antidepressant or anti-anxiety medication because they just can't figure out why they cry themselves to sleep every night. Well, the reason is that they are going against their biological imperative, which is to lock down a man while they're young to start a family. Living life as a man isn't what women should be doing, which is why the ones that do end up on medication. Now, as she sees her friends getting married and having children, she's regretful that she didn't stick it out with Matthew, who is now married. That could have been her, and she threw it all away for a triple-digit notch count, a 5 to 6 figure salary, and a cold, empty bed she sleeps in every night. The funny thing is that she did this. She says she did this without a backward glance. This was easy for her. She was engaged to Matthew, and dudes kept hitting on her, and she succumbed like most women do these days. She continues, at this time of year, so many people will be assessing their lives and relationships, wondering if the grass is greener on the other side. Many will mistake contentment for boredom, forgetting to cherish the good things they have. I would urge those, she says, who are considering walking away from such riches to think again. You see that? She calls marriage and children such riches. She's financially successful, but she calls those such riches. This is what women really think, guys. They can't deny it no matter how much money they make, no matter how much the culture tells them it is. Let's continue. She says, how different would things be for me now if only I'd listened to Matthew when he pleaded with me not to leave him in 1997, tears pouring down his face. I was crying too, and it tortured me to watch the heart of the man I loved breaking in front of me. But I was resolute. One day I might look back and realize I've made the biggest mistake of my life, I told him, as we clung to each other desperately. How prophetic those words have proven to be. I will always be here for you, Matthew promised, and I arrogantly thought that somehow I could put him on ice and return to him. Put him on ice and return to him. Okay? Grass is greener on the other side. Then she says that many, and this is important. She says, I'm going to read this back. She says, many will mistake, talking about women, many will mistake contentment for boredom. Guys, this is solid gold from Miss Cross. And ladies, if you're listening, this is solid gold for you too. Women mistake contentment for boredom all the time, and it causes them to make bad decisions. We already know this, but let's take a little bit deeper look into that statement, because there's something there that most people won't pick up on. For a man, contentment can definitely be boredom. This is why men push themselves to be better. This is why we always strive for excellence. And when we achieve excellence, what do? We don't rest on our laurels. We look for another challenge. We look for another mountain to climb. Women are not designed this way. Contentment for a woman is exactly that, contentment. But once again, women falsely conflate their emotions with a man's reasoning, and this is the quintessential of this in action. Understand this, guys. Contentment is complacency for men. Contentment is happiness for women. Then she said she told him that she might look back and realize she made the biggest mistake of her life. She didn't believe that at the time, guys. She just told him that to make him feel better, to maybe stop his crying. Girls do this all the time. They say things like, I know I'm making a huge mistake, or I wish I knew what was wrong with me, as if to say she knows she's making the wrong decision, but something in her is just pushing her to make this decision. Girls also like to say things like, I will always love you. Now, this is for two reasons. Number one, to make him feel better, like I just said. But number two, to keep him in their orbit until they've gotten their fill of random men, which leads me to a profound statement she makes. She says, quote, I thought I could put him on ice and return to him. Ladies, if you're watching, you need to heed this woman's warnings. The guys you think will stick around will become the men who will ignore you, okay? These are the men who are going to ignore your, hey, stranger, long time, feeler type text messages or DMs on social media. They're not going to want you 12 years, 30 pounds, 3 kids, and 2 abortions later, ladies. The men who will want you are the men you will not want. And this is the situation that Karen Cross finds herself in. She's got plenty of options out there. There's no doubt about it. Look at the bottom of your screen. She's not pretty, but she's not hideous either. But guess what? Because she's 42, they're not the options that she wants. Karen, like all women, wants a man of value. And men who are willing to wife up an overweight, sallow-skinned former carousel rider with 4 kids, 3 baby daddies, and too much entitlement are low-value men. You cannot put men with great potential on ice and expect them to still be there when you are ready to settle down. And to be honest with you, Matthew, he's probably a detective in the police force now, probably making a lot more money, and he will have a nice pension when he retires. He didn't wait for Karen, nor should he have. Guys, if you want laser focus and a good, clean, controlled energy to get a lot done in a short period of time, you need Gorilla Mind Rush. I tried it last month, and I've used it ever since, even when I was on vacation. Just 3 tablets in the morning with a cup of strong black coffee, and my mind and body are working at peak efficiency. I power through my workouts, and I have more than enough mental and physical energy left over to prepare for my show, do my consultations, and stay hyper-focused and undistracted the entire time. Guys, listen, here's what's going to happen. 15 minutes after you take Gorilla Mind Rush, you start to notice a subtle change in your mindset. 15 minutes after that, you'll notice that you're much more focused. You're thinking more clearly. You'll be a little more energetic, and your motivation to be productive goes up a little bit. An hour in, you'll feel noticeably more focused, and you can now concentrate even with distractions around. You'll feel less stressed and less anxious. After 90 minutes, you are in full Gorilla Mind Rush mode. Your focus, your concentration, and your memory will be far beyond your normal state, and you will stay this way for at least 6 hours. And get this, guys, there's no crash. Okay, you get all the benefits of your mind being hyper-focused for a long period of time without the usual cliff when it wears off, like with other supplements. I took Gorilla Mind Rush at 5 a.m. this morning, guys, and here I am more than 7 hours later, and I'm still going strong. If you need this kind of focus, if you need this kind of energy, if you need this kind of productivity, while also supporting the show, go to donovansharpe.com/Gorilla Mind Rush. That's donovansharpe.com/Gorilla Mind Rush. I'm putting the link. I'll actually put the link in the chat right now. And you will also find the link in the description. All right, let's continue with the article. I'm going to skip over the part where she talks about how they met and how he proposed. That's all a bunch of gibberish. I don't give a damn about that, and neither do you guys. But let's pick back up where her and Matthew meet a little bit of adversity. Okay? She says, quote, "But then the housing market crashed and we were plunged into negative equity. Struggling should have brought us closer together, and at first it did. But as time went on and my magazine career and salary advanced, I started to resent Matthew as he drifted from one dead-end job to another. I still loved him, but I began to feel embarrassed by his blue-collar jobs, annoyed that despite his intelligence, he did not have a career. Then he bought a lurid pink Volkswagen Beetle. Why couldn't he drive a normal car? Things that seem incredibly insignificant begin to niggle." She says dead-end job here, from one dead-end job to another. This is a very important section. This is a very important statement here. And I'll tell you why. I tell you guys all the time that women don't love us for who we are, but rather for what we are. We also know that a woman's love is fickle and fluid and changes like the weather. We know that. But when a woman truly loves you, she will give you time to pick yourself up after you slip, if that happens. If you lose your six-figure job, she won't just bail out. She won't just bail out. Okay, she's not, at least not yet, because she knows that because you had that six-figure job, that you have the potential and you can probably get another one. With this in mind, she gives you a little time to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get another job with that potential salary, which keeps your lifestyle and your value intact. But if you lose your high-paying job and you never recover because you wallow in self-pity and allow yourself to spiral downhill, she's going to bounce like a bad check. Again, she will give you time to blow off steam, guys. She will give you time to lick your wounds. She'll give you a little bit of time to recover. Listen, believe it or not, women are realistic by nature, right? They can be pragmatic when they absolutely have to be. And when they're with a man of value, when they're with a man they truly respect and love, that pragmatism and common sense kicks in the way of a realistic timetable to get your shit back together. But if you don't recover, guys, make no mistake, she will not stick around. Guys, this doesn't make her a bad person. It makes her a woman. This is hypergamy. Hypergamy is good for men. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Hypergamy forces men to keep our shit together. A lot of guys don't tell the whole story when talking about a woman, talking about an ex-wife or ex-girlfriend. They say, well, I lost my job and my wife or my girlfriend left me, which may be true, but they're only telling you part of what happened. Yes, okay, he lost his job, and yes, she left him. But what he didn't tell you was that he bitched and moaned about how unfair it was that you got laid off, and you did that for an extended period of time. What he didn't tell you was that you allowed your unemployment check to make you lazy and unmotivated. What he didn't tell you was that he didn't recover because he either couldn't or he didn't try. So, man, we can talk all the noise we want about how a woman left a man because he lost his job or his fortune, but what most men conveniently leave out in some of these cases is the fact that they never recovered, nor did they try after that. It's to bring a sports reference in here, it's just like Saints fans who blame the refs for blowing that pass interference non-call in the NFC Championship game back in January. But what they're not willing to admit is that Sean Payton, the head coach, didn't just charge it to the game and move on. Okay? Saints fans won't tell you that after that blown call, they kicked a field goal to take the lead after said bad call. Saints fans don't acknowledge the fact that Sean Payton didn't just brush that bad call off and continue to coach. No, He threw a fit. His face turned red. We all saw it. He's running up and down the sidelines, yelling at the refs 5 and 10 minutes after the bad call was made. The Saints have the lead. Sean Payton is still bitching and moaning. Sean Payton's attitude permeated the rest of the team, and because they didn't pick themselves up, they're taking their cues from their head coach, but because they never truly left that alone, they didn't pick themselves up and move on, they ended up losing the game. Now, all of that said, that's not exactly what happened in this situation, okay? Karen and Matthew were about the same age. They met in school, so he didn't really hit his stride yet in terms of his earning potential. Typically, men don't start making real money until we hit our 30s. Matthew wasn't making any real money yet, and Karen's hypergamy just started to nag, as you will actually see in the next paragraph. Let's move on. She continues, I began to wish he was more sophisticated and earned more. I felt envious of friends with better off partners who were able to support them as they started their families. This is perfectly normal. This is perfectly normal for women. I stopped seeing Matthew as my equal, she said. I stopped seeing all the qualities that had made me fall in love with him. His fierce intelligence, our shared sense of humor, his determination not to follow the crowd. Instead, I saw someone who was holding me back. I encouraged him to find a career and was thrilled when he accepted to join the police in 1995. It should have heralded a new chapter in our lives, she says, but it only hastened the end. We went from spending every evening and weekend together to hardly seeing one another. Matthew was doing round-the-clock shifts while I worked long hours on the launch of the new magazine. Our sex life dwindled and nights out together were rare. I stopped appreciating little things he did, like leaving romantic notes on the pillow or scouring secondhand bookshops from novels he knew I'd love. He was my best friend, yet I took him totally for granted. After festering for weeks about his shortcomings, I told Matthew I was leaving. I spent hours talking and crying as he tried to convince me to stay, but I was adamant. My parents were horrified that I was walking away from a man they felt was right for me. My father's words to me that day continue to haunt me. Karen, her father told her, think carefully about what you're doing. There's a lot to be said for someone who truly loves you. Now, Matthew's first problem is that Karen saw, it's actually both their problems, is that Karen saw Matthew as her equal, which Karen thought was a good thing. But as we all know, it's not. No matter how many times feminism tells you that a woman can love a man they see as their equal, women are simply incapable of this. It is impossible, gentlemen, for a woman to truly love a man who is not superior to her. A woman cannot respect, nor can she love a man she is sexually involved with whose perceived value is equal or lower than hers. Can't be done, nor should it be. So Matthew is already behind the eight ball, which points out another immutable truth, which is that the best relationships, the relationships where the man is superior to the woman, his value is higher than hers. These are the relationships where the man is at least 8 years older than a woman. Older men have themselves together. They make more money. They're further along in their careers. They're wiser. They're just more mature. They're more seasoned. An attractive 22-year-old girl, she might have some fun with a 24-year-old guy, but she's not taking that guy seriously as a long-term partner. No, she's thinking about locking down the 36-year-old she's sleeping with, the guy who drives the Audi, the guy who owns a townhouse, the guy who's been seasoned by all the traveling he's done. A 23-year-old guy who drives a used Honda Accord and lives with 2 roommates and works at the mall isn't going to move the needle in terms of satisfying a woman's hypergamy. Matthew was this guy, and unfortunately for him, he didn't realize that his relationship was over before it began, and if we're being honest, neither did Karen. But now we come to what always happens in these situations when a woman leaves a man at the altar, and that is infidelity. Okay, well, how do you know she cheated, Donovan? Easy. He was gone on nights and weekends. And young, pretty girls who buy into the feminist manifesto aren't going to sit around and wait for their boyfriends to come home on a Friday night. She's mistaking complacency for boredom, remember? Of course she cheated. She says she said herself her sex life dwindled, as if the only time they could have sex was at night. DDJ says it best. He says, every woman is a slut if you catch her on the right day. I agree with that 100%. Well, I'm going to add to that and say that it also applies if you can catch her in the right circumstance, as in her husband is rarely at home at night and works weekends. Now, another undeniable truth that I talk about constantly is that when a woman actually tells you she's leaving or that she's breaking up with you, she's already been sleeping with the guy she's leaving you for. A woman will break up with you in her mind months before she actually does it. I never hear of a woman dumping a guy and not having another branch in the form of a man to swing to. This is how they all operate, guys, and Miss Crosshair is no different. This is why she was adamant and resolute. Right? This is why she had that firm resolve. Women don't have self-resolve. They don't have self-motivation. They don't have strength. They're incapable of doing anything without some sort of support system. And that includes breaking up with their boyfriends and husbands. And what's the support system of choice for females the Western world over? That's right, another guy. That guy, that other branch, that's what gives her the strength, I'm putting in air quotes for those of you listening on the replay, to leave, despite the fact that her man is pleading with her to stay. Then, of course, her dad warned her about making this unwise decision, which, of course, she ignored. Here's something else I'll point out. So she encouraged him to find another career, join the police force in 1995, right? All right, get another career, you're going to make more money. Okay, he does that, but guess what? He's not home on nights and weekends. You see, ladies, what you don't understand, women want all the benefits without any of the consequences. And that includes what they want in their men. They want the man to make CEO level money and to be CEO without paying the CEO price. I've talked about this before. If you want to be rich and successful, you are going to have to make some sacrifices. You're going to have to sacrifice time. You're going to have to sacrifice your health. You're going to have to sacrifice your relationships. Women don't understand this. Rich men don't just have all the time in the world to just be doing whatever with them all the time. If your man makes good money, he's not going to have as much time to spend with you. This is how this is. I'll use myself as an example. Dude, I work my ass off. Right now, well, actually, up till about a month ago, I was working 12, 13, 15 hours a day. Barely had enough time to spend with Devin. That is the price that we pay. Now, fortunately, we live together, so we're able to sleep in the same bed and take dates. But the fact is that the harder you work, the less time you have. This is a trade-off. If you want to have more time, wives and girlfriends, if you're watching this, if you want more time with your boyfriends and husbands, guess what? You're going to have to sacrifice some of your bottom line. If you want him to make more money, you're going to have to sacrifice some of your time. You cannot have it both ways, at least not in the short term. Long term, when you're in your 50s and he's close to retirement and he's worth 7 figures, okay, now he's got a little bit of time. But guess what? Success and money and power doesn't come for free. He is going to have to sacrifice something. Women are grossly unaware of the fact that with every good thing that's worth accomplishing, there comes a price. Let's continue. Now she's talking about her father, giving her this advice. But I refuse to listen, she says, convinced there would be another, better Mr. Right waiting around the corner. I moved into a rented flat, this is an apartment, a few miles away in Hornchurch, Essex, and embraced the single life with a vengeance. Embrace the single life with a vengeance means that she was getting ran through. Embrace the single life with a vengeance is code for I started sleeping with men by the truckload, which is why she dumped Matthew in the first place. But now I was an editor, she continues, on a national magazine. Life was one long round of premieres and dinners or drinks or parties. Matthew and I remained close, she says, even telling each other about new relationships. But though I dumped him, I never felt the women he met were good enough. I can see now I was acting out of jealousy. I clearly wanted to keep him for myself. Our closeness was, however, called to a halt in 2000 when he met his first serious girlfriend after me, Sarah. One night shortly after his 34th birthday, I phoned to ask his advice about something. Matthew was unusually abrupt and asked me not to call him again. Quote, please don't send me birthday or Christmas cards anymore, he said. Sarah opened your card last week and was really upset. I have to put her feelings first. I hated the fact, she says, that Matthew was suddenly putting another woman before me. How dare she come between us? Over the next few weeks, I'm ashamed to say I vented my spleen at both of them in a series of heated phone calls. I was completely irrational. I didn't want Matthew back, she says, but felt upstaged by Sarah. Unbelievable. Unsurprisingly, she continues, after one particularly nasty argument, Matthew put down the phone and refused to take any more of my phone calls. I didn't realize it at the time, she says, but I would never speak to him again. Let's take it from the top here. Again, a life of premieres and dinner parties and drinks, that is a life that leads to a lot of sex with a lot of men. Then she says, I wanted to keep him for myself. This is how selfish women are, guys. They want to hop from bed to bed, but then they expect you not to. They want you to wait around for them while they get used up and passed around by random men. Just like that hoe of a bachelorette, Hannah Brown. Dude, this chick wrapped her legs around every contestant at least a half a dozen times each, made sure that she made out with every dude on every episode, and had sex with at least 2 men during Fantasy Suite week. But then she expected these guys to remain chaste 6 months before they came to the show. If she found out that a contestant was involved with another girl before they came to the show, she lost her mind and was sent home. This is what happened to Jed and another guy named Scott. Then Miss Cross, this is funny. She actually goes from ex-girlfriend to stalker by calling his house to air out Matthew and his new girlfriend. Then she says she didn't want Matthew back, but she felt upstaged by Sarah. Of course you're upstaged by her. She's his girlfriend, and you're another slutty woman who thinks it's your birthright to keep the attention of a man you left to ride the carousel. And again, it is absolutely unbelievable that even though she didn't want him back, she did her level best to destroy his relationship with another woman. This is how grimy females are, man. You think, okay, well, she's trying to destroy my relationship with my new girlfriend. She must want me back. Nah, man. She just wants to keep you on ice. Then Matthew finally realizes what's going on and says, you know what? Fuck this. This chick broke my heart. She left me to start sleeping around. She's rubbing it in my face. And now she's got the gall to call me up and air me out. Bitch, be gone. And never talked to her again. Let's continue. Shortly afterwards, Shortly afterwards, I met Richard. It was a whirlwind romance, she says, and within a year, we were engaged in buying an idyllic farmhouse in the Norfolk countryside while I continued my journalistic career commuting to London. He was a successful singer, and as we toured the country, I thought I had finally found the excitement and love that I craved. But Matthew was never far from my thoughts, she said, and Richard complained that I often brought him into conversations, even comparing them both. They were so different. Although outwardly romantic, Richard was repeatedly unfaithful, and I never felt secure enough to start a family with him. Eventually, after 3.5 years together, he walked out, having admitted his latest paramour was pregnant by him. My life fell apart, she says. Over the next year, I struggled to pull myself together and did a lot of soul searching. I finally understood what my father had meant. I realized Matthew was the only person who had loved and understood me. When I heard through a mutual friend that he had split up with Sarah, I wrote to him, apologizing and asking for forgiveness and a second chance. It was 6 years since we had last spoken, but I naively thought that he would want to hear from me. What I didn't know was that Sarah was still living at the house, and it was she who opened my very personal letter. It included my phone number, and she left me several angry, hurtful voicemails. Yet again, I had inadvertently caused problems in Matthew's life, so it was unsurprising I never heard from him again, despite writing several times over the next few months. In the end, I left it at birthday and Christmas cards, thinking he'd find a way to get in touch if he'd ever changed his mind. Ah, yes. Richard the bad boy, the successful singer, touring the country, excitement and adventure. And surprise, surprise, her rock star boyfriend was a cheater. And surprise, surprise, she stayed with him. Guys, if this doesn't show you that the worse you treat today's women, the better they treat you, and vice versa, nothing will. Dude, this woman had a man who was devoted to her. She had a man who wanted to marry her. She had a man who wanted to start a family with her. And what does she do to show her appreciation? She ups and leaves him. Then she gets with a man who repeatedly cheats on her. But how does she punish him? She stays with him for 3.5 years. He left her, not the other way around. He impregnated another woman, and he had to leave her. She didn't dump him when she found out that he had impregnated another woman. He left her. This is how messed up today's women are, guys. The better you treat them, the worse they treat you. It's ass backwards, but this is what feminism has created. It has created multi-generations of women who punish good treatment and reward bad treatment. Then after she gets used up and discarded by this bad boy alpha dude rock star, she actually holds out hope that Matthew will change his mind after walking out on him to sleep around. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Then she says, I heard a couple of years ago Matthew had married his new partner, Nicola. For a few moments, I couldn't breathe. Then the tears came. Matthew and Nicola still live in Essex and, as far as I know, don't have children. That's the next milestone I truly dread. It's been 11 years since Matthew and I last spoke, and I have to accept that door has been closed. After 11 years, she finally accepts that the door has been closed. Perhaps, she says, he has found what he is looking for, and I am a distant memory. I have had another significant relationship since Richard, with Rob, but that recently ended after 4 years. Rob reminded me a lot of Matthew. He was decent and honorable. The life and soul of the party, but with a kind and sensitive side. But we were too jaded by previous heartbreak to make it work. And while I wanted children, he had a grown-up son and didn't want to start over again. So once again, I am on my own, my mind full of if-onlys. If only I'd stayed with Matthew, we'd almost certainly be married with children. Or Maybe Matthew wasn't the right man. I will never know the answer, but my decision to leave him has definitely cost me the chance of ever becoming a mother. Now I can only look back and admonish my selfish younger self. When I visit friends and family back in our hometown, I cannot help but hope I'll bump into Matthew. I'd like to think I'd say sorry, that I will always be there for him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he turned his back on me and kept walking. To those out there thinking of walking away from humdrum relationships, I would say don't mistake contentment for unhappiness as I did. It could be a choice you'll regret for the rest of your life. Damn. I mean, reading that last part of this almost makes you feel sorry for this chick because she's going to be miserable for the rest of her life, guys. You can count on that. She'll never be a mother, she'll never be married, and she'll never be happy. But guess what? I feel not 1 ounce of pity for this slut. Not even a little bit. She had a chance to marry young. She had the perfect opportunity to have children and to be happy. But what did she do? She chose to gorge on random men while expecting the man she jettisoned to wait for her and did her level best to sabotage his relationships with other women. Guys, you'd be surprised at how many of these stories are on the internet these days. Just take a look around, man. There are countless articles, countless blog posts, countless videos of women in their 40s, late 30s, early 40s, warning these girls not to fall victim to the false promise of locking down a traditionally masculine man who has his shit together after being passed around by those same men in their 20s who will reject them only a few years later. There are more and more of these stories floating around these days, guys. Even the Sex and the City, listen, I even heard even the Sex and the City creator regrets not settling down and having children young. That article's definitely making its rounds these days. Unfortunately for most women, or unfortunately for women, for every article like this, like the one I just pointed out that warns about the perils of the single party life for girls, there are 100 articles and videos that glorify sleeping around. For every video of a 40-something woman telling girls to marry young and have families, there are 50 articles that talk about the joys of one-night stands and having a roster of 7 men who will come and bang your brains out in 2 texts or less. Not only are there more articles and videos that encourage this self-destructive behavior, girls always follow bad advice. Oh my God, bad advice? Why would we follow bad advice, Donovan? Simple. Bad advice is easy to follow. Good advice is hard to follow. It's easy to sleep around, and it is hard not to sleep around. It's easy to take advice of a woman who says, live free, YOLO, never settle, hashtag the single life. It is very difficult to take the advice of a woman who tells you to exercise temperance, discrimination, and self-control in the dating market. It is easier to take the advice of a woman who tells you to cheat on her boyfriend with the hot guy at work who's been flirting with you than it is to take the advice of a woman who's been married for 37 years and has 5 children who tells you that you need to do more housework, wear less clothing around your man to keep his sexual attraction to you. It's easier to take advice from women who tell you to break up with your boyfriend at 20, 21 years old because you're bored than it is to take the advice of a 42-year-old woman who took that same bad advice and is warning you not to. Who knows, guys? Maybe these cautionary tales will start to outnumber the content that encourages women to sleep around, right? I mean, maybe women these days will wake up and realize that these women who are warning them to abandon that party lifestyle and lock down a man while they're still young and beautiful are telling the truth. But when and if that happens, it is highly doubtful that it is ever going to happen in my lifetime. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.